So now we are going to have a conversation about UN women, not you and women, UN women.
United Nations.
United Nations Entity for Gender Equality and the Empowerment of Women. UN women, it was established 15 years ago. And in fact, you wonder, how old is the United Nations? How can UN women be 15? So what was happening before then? Well, those are the questions that are going to be answered by Dan Bazira from UN Women. He is the deputy head of the UN Women in Kenya. Dan, good morning.
Good morning, Latif.
Karibu sana.
Asante.
This is where we fix the nation one conversation at a time, seeking to understand the work that's done. And this is an accountability conversation today with you, all right? So UN Women has been here for 15 years. What have you done for those 15 years? What were you meant to do? And where are you in terms of realizing those milestones? But Janet will welcome you with the day's quote.
Okay. With a strong woman also, right? In light of UN Women, Ida Bell Wells Barnett, a civil rights activist from way back in the 1800s. And in one of her diary entries in 1887, she said, "A man's character is his capital." A man's character is his capital. How would you translate that?
Well, character never changes. Letter A, whether you're in Kenya, whether you're in Uganda, where I'm from, whether you are from Tanzania, whichever kind of country you are from, a character never changes. So it basically means that we never have to change. What I say in the public should be reflected in the private. What you do in the private should be reflected in the public. That's how I could interpret it.
That's good. Good interpretations.
It's a good one. I like it. So when we say that UN Women is turning 15, what exactly do we mean? When did it turn 15? Is it today?
Yesterday.
It was yesterday.
Yesterday.
That it turned 15.
Yesterday.
What does that mean?
So it really means that, first of all, to give a background of it, is that in 2010, that's when the member states met and found it necessary that there is a need to have a UN agency that fundamentally advances the gender equality and empowerment of women and girls. And that's when UN Women was formed. So UN Women is an abbreviation, but it's a United Nations Agency for Gender Equality and Women Empowerment. Quite a long name, but so we abbreviate it as UN Women. So that's when that mandate was given to this agency. Quite young, but doing a lot of amazing things globally, regionally, but also in the country, in Kenya. So that's how we came up with it.
Did the push start in as far back as 1995 when the Beijing Declaration for Women, which turns 30?
30, yeah.
Because I would imagine, I don't know, for the many times I think there's been collaborations with UN Women, I thought you were much older. I thought it was 1995. It must have birthed the movement. Do you think that's what began to make the member states realize, wait, we need a specific arm for women's issues?
Yes, quite a lot of input to that. One of them is the Beijing conference that happened, the conference that happened in Kenya also, which is also Nairobi at 40. Quite a number of engagements that happened. And before 2010, there were quite pockets of different agencies which were advancing the call for gender equality and women empowerment of girls. So that's when the member states came up and said, look, rather than working with different fragments of organizations, let's merge them together to form a one agency within the UN system that would champion this agenda.
So the four entities, correct me if I get them wrong, the UN Division for the Advancement of Women is one of them, UN International Research and Training Institute for the Advancement of Women. Okay, still advancement, okay. Another one, Office of the Special Advisor on Gender Issues and, you guessed it, Advancement of Women, and UN Development Fund for Women, UNIFEM. I think UNIFEM was more visible. So these four, they were all working on women issues and they were all UN agencies. Why did we have them? What was the justification then for having four different entities working on the advancement of women?
Well, they may have been within the UN system, but each of them was advancing different agendas. One on research, another one was looking at voice and agency, others were looking at human rights, fundamentally towards the women and girls. So when the member states met and said, look, let's all of you, the four, come together and be given a triple mandate. And that's the mandate for UN Women. One is looking at the normative work, translating the normative frameworks right from the region, the global, and the country level into being implemented at country level. The other one is around coordination, a role that UN Women plays in bringing together the different actors within the gender equality and women empowerment space to bring them together as a voice to say, this is what we need to champion. And then the operations mandate is around the different programs that we implement at country level. So that is the triple mandate that defines UN Women as an agency within the United Nations system.
When people may ask, shrinking civil spaces, a lot of women being killed as a result of femicide. It's been a very difficult season for women's rights. Some might ask, where is UN Women? Where is your voice? Where has your voice been in all this? How are you protecting these shrinking civil spaces? How are you holding out for protesters who've been harassed? This is especially with regards to femicide. Some may be like, I don't know that we've heard UN Women's voice, but how would you answer that?
I think it would be wrong to say that they have not had UN Women within the space. One of it is that our mandate is also to work with the government, the different state agencies within the government, to look at some of the topical issues that are happening in a particular country. An example is the femicide. When numbers started coming in, one of the things that we did as UN Women in the country was to engage with the duty bearers to say, look, this is an issue. And through that, the president of this country commissioned a national technical working group on femicide and GBV. And that committee has been working with a mandate which is ending this month. And there is a report that has already been compiled and soon to be shared to come out with the recommendations, because one of the issues that this committee has been doing is to ensure that they meet with the different stakeholders and also the survivors of femicide, those that have been involved and those that have been, whether directly or indirectly, to interact with them and say, what are your recommendations in terms of the strategies to end some of this? So everything is contained in the report. That's one of the ways. The other aspect is also bring together the different civil societies in the country. Femicide would not have been known in the country without these civil society and women rights organizations coming on board. There was a march in Nairobi which flagged that this is an issue. The other aspect is working with you as media to report, because some of these happenings were in those communities and nobody would know. But once the media comes up and say, look, there is an issue here, one number here, the other number, by 2020, last year, 2024, we had over 500 cases of femicide in the country. The number may not seem to be big, but it's very worrying, because if it's not addressed, then it becomes an issue. So that's where we have been and engaging at different levels.
When you say engaging, what exactly do you mean? Is it that UN Women, so for example, if you talk about policy, just the bigger issues, policy, engaging with the government, engaging with the civic actors, what do you mean? Is it that you convene meetings, or you attend meetings, or you offer technical support, or you fund? What is engage?
So, well, it's an ecosystem of whatever you have mentioned. One is that we do provide a technical support to the different actors within the gender space. Okay. The other aspect that we also do is the financial support, case by case. Okay. So in that space, then we are in position to continuously move this journey with the different actors, the civil society within, the different state government machineries and agencies, for example, State Department for Gender. We work with the KNBS, the Kenya National Bureau of Statistics. We work with the State Department for Devolution when it comes to issues that relate to different counties. We work with the Council of Governors as a platform that brings together the different counties within the country. So those are the levels of engagement that I'm talking of. But also working with the different, the key pillars within the government. We work with the judiciary when it comes to access to justice. We do work with the parliament, particularly with KEOPA, the Kenya Women Parliamentary Association, but also the Young Women, the Young Parliamentary Association. So those are some of the platforms that we engage with, convening them, because one of our mandates is to convene, right, to bring them together in one space and discuss some of these key issues.
Right.
Yeah.
Whenever we think about the work that is happening, especially around the UN, sometimes it feels like it's a lot of talk and we can't feel the impact. So perhaps if there's tangible, wins that have happened over the last 15 years that you could give us as a result of the engagements with, Council of Governors, with Parliament, with KEOPA, all of them. Yeah.
Great. So it's not all about talking, if, for example, we are talking of at macro level when it comes to policies, there is no way you will avoid talking, because it is talking that you'll engage them, you'll engage the different actors. Yeah. I must say that in one of the issue, the impact that we can see, for example, at the county level, we have been implementing a very fundamental program in the country, which is around the climate smart agriculture, enabling women in different counties. We started with Kitui, Laikipia, West Pokot, enabling them to have an economic livelihood options within their community. There are those that are dealing in different farming activities, beekeeping, poultry, mention a lot of them. So that's one of the game changers in the country that we have seen. At the county level, we have engaged in over 17 counties. One, to have the community integrated development plans that looks at gender-related issues, including the budget allocations for them. I can give an example, for example, in Laikipia, where the governor set aside monies, it's on 60-40%. So what happens is that the government in Laikipia has set 60% for women to access water technologies. So once these women groups that we have been supporting individually generates the 40% of the cost of a given water tank, then the county government will come up and give the 60%. Right. So those are some of the gains that we are seeing in the country. We have seen, we have been supporting the government to come up with a national care policy in the country that defines the unpaid care work.
Yes.
Because women are involved in unpaid care work, and it's not recognized in the country. And when we engaged with the National Treasury, said, no, we don't have a guiding policy. So then as UN Women, what do? We come up with a policy. And that policy is towards the tail end of being endorsed.
That's good.
Okay.
And we've actually discussed the care policy, and we'll even get back into it. But I wanted to know, there's some of these are very nice, especially economic empowerment, working through. Same to the national care policy. It's putting numbers to work that is otherwise goes unseen. But I'm thinking we have some bigger, quote-unquote, gender issues. Parliament has not been able to reach the 2/3 gender quota. By law, it's not even a quota. There's that. We have femicide, and I'm wondering, what role does UN Women play in pushing for fixing some of these bigger issues that speak to some of our lack of direct passion for gender issues? Yes.
Well, thanks for that question. Like I said, at a macro level, at a more broader issue, UN Women, we supported the establishment of the National Multi-Sector Working Group on 2/3.
On 2/3, okay.
Okay. One of the issues, one of the key mention I want to say is that each time we are advancing a gender-related issue and there is a pushback, that means it is an issue. So each time you bring up an issue and then somehow it is being pushed back, then it means that's a critical issue that you need to pursue. So we have been supporting this platform, and a report has been submitted to the floor of Parliament. And of course, we are waiting for the Parliament to sit and then see whether again it will be pushed back. Then again, that's when we use the critical mass to say, guys, this is an issue. Because once you advance it and there is a pushback, that means it is an issue.
What's the content of the report? Because, everything seems like fairly laid out. You know, what's the content of the report?
So what we're asking for is to ensure that the 2/3 gender principle is honored, as stipulated even in the Constitution of 2010. That's the major issue. So once that is stipulated, then we start to engage with political parties and say, look, this is the provision and it must be there.
You know, so in the National Assembly, we don't have a laid out procedure for ensuring that we meet the threshold. In the County Assembly, it's in the Constitution, okay? But overall, the principle is a constitutional principle, which means that it's the citizens who have decided that we want to have gender equality. Is there any report that UN Women has conducted, a survey, engagement with communities, to understand why we, as a people, are actually not actualizing it? Because we have no law that we need to make sure that out of the 1,450 MCA positions in this country meet the gender threshold. They don't.
If I must say that that's one of the issues that we identified during our discussion with the multi-sector working group, to say, let's do a survey, find out what are the reasons to this. And so that's something that we are coming up with, and soon when the report, when the survey is commissioned and the report is released, then definitely we'll invite the media to be part of that.
But maybe anecdotally from the programs that you conduct, you know, like for example, engaging in these CIDPs with the 17 counties, and it's communities that are meeting to discuss the county integrated development plans. How do people react in the communities? Because you're advancing the issue of gender and women empowerment and gender equality to be included in the county plans, development plans. How do people react and engage? What's the response of the citizens at that level?
Well, the response at that level is a case by case. Okay, there are counties that will be very positive from the word go. There are those that still have resentment because of the patriarchy within the different communities. You know, how do you tell, for example, a woman to be part of the peace building committee? What is she going to say? But look, numbers indicate that in conflict circumstances, women are taken as weapons of war. Okay? So those are some of the numbers that we use to say at different levels. For example, if we meet with the MCAs, we say, please, these are issues that you need to consider. When we meet with the governors, we said, this is that issue that you should consider. So the reaction is mixed. It's not a uniform. It's not one size fits all, but it's a kind of things that keeps on changing, and then you keep on either referring to one of the counties or two counties that have been very positive, and that cross-learning has really helped in terms of saying, Governor X is very positive. Come and learn from this.
Yeah, it comes down to like gender norms as well.
Exactly.
If, however communities perceive women is how they'll also, maybe it'll affect the uptake of a program.
True.
We're going into a break soon, but UN Women was also significantly affected by the USAID stop work order, right? I wonder how that's disrupted momentum or priorities around some of your core programs. There's a fear that it could collapse, right? Everything to do with GBV, education, etc. Has it affected, and what kind of contingencies are you trying to put in place to make sure that the core programs don't collapse altogether?
Well, as UN Women, I must say that we are not heavily affected.
Okay.
We are not heavily affected because I can say over 60 to 70% of our development partners that we work with are not US-based. Okay? So then the effect was not so much heavily experienced. As part of the contingency, we had already started with our current strategic plan that is ending this year. And we already into the development of a new strategic plan for the global organization. We had already started on innovative financing. For example, engagement of the private sector, because they are very key in different countries. Engagement with philanthropies that are coming on board to say, look, this is an issue that we need to engage with, to support and to align ourselves with. So some of those were already thought through, that forward-looking. It's like we had anticipated that maybe at a given time, this will happen. So really the effect is not so severe, and I cannot say that we are going to close shop.
Right.
No.
That's good.
Okay. Before we go into the break, I wanted to just get an overview, because sometimes Kenya is seen, as a beacon of peace in the region, Silicon Savannah, all these things. But when it comes to gender issues, I do sometimes feel like we're lagging behind for a nation that is as advanced as we are. And I'm using that term very loosely. What are some of those markers that are red flags as far as Kenya's advancement in gender? I think for me, one is our teenage pregnancy rates, which really do scare me. Femicide as well. But
child marriage.
Oh my, yeah.
The list.
Yeah, goes on.
Yeah, the list goes on. So there are really red flags. First of all, from a positive note, is to acknowledge that the government has really put into place policies, very good legal frameworks, shelved somewhere. Implementation is still a challenge. So because of that gap, it means these issues still remain as a red flag. As you rightly mentioned, femicide is a red flag in the country. FGM is a very critical aspect. Teenage pregnancy, early child marriage, access to quality education becomes a very serious issue. Losing a life during childbirth is another aspect that is also very heavily, the issues around leadership in different spaces, whether in the political space, whether in within even the public space. Recently, I had an interaction with some of the big shoots, the government, the business shoots within the country. And we are seated in the boardroom, and then I asked, okay, what is your gender parity? How many women, how many men are into the space of into your company? One of the companies said, yeah, for me I have 55 women and 45. Then I said, okay, let's go deeper. Out of the 55, how many are in top level? Said, you see, I don't have any, but most of them. So
we are grooming them. We are developing.
We are developing them. We are grooming them. No, I mean, that's what they will say.
I've met your quota.
I've met a quota.
So let's continue after the break.
Okay.
Just please don't lose sight of that thought. I think it's important. Yeah, we're going into a short break, and we come back. We'll continue the conversation, sample some of your feedback as well. It's coming up to 8:30 on Fixing the Nation. We'll be right back.
I will do this one, Banange. Dan Bazira is a deputy country representative.
Bazira.
Is a deputy country representative for UN Women, which turned 15 yesterday, globally, not at UN Women in Kenya, but globally it turned 15 yesterday. And so we are taking stock of what UN Women has been able to do, the mandate and what it's been able to do, particularly in this country, in terms of advancing equality and empowerment of women and girls.
It's a teenager. Think about it, it's still quite young.
It's at that point.
Yes, it's at that point.
You talk to it, I would know how to talk to it.
You would know how to talk to it.
Don't just talk.
Tread carefully.
No, that's true.
Don't just talk to this 15-year-old.
During the break, I don't know if it was Eric or Mariam who was asking, about things like FGM, because it almost seems like there's such a reversal in gains made. FGM, there was seasons when there was a huge push against FGM. Alternative rites of passage were conversations that were had, and there seemed to be uptake from some communities. But I think more and more, and you can speak to some numbers, you might have them, you might not, but whether it's teen pregnancy, some of what Mariam had listed, even period poverty, all of those issues, there almost seems to be a reverse on gains made. What do you attribute that to? And as UN Women, how are you fighting what a lot of people are calling the anti-gender rhetoric, which is the world over has, a lot of people have gone right, and sometimes right wing also means mbona mnaongea sana as women, like we don't need your voices to be heard so much. And then as a result, a lot of rights are pushed back on. How are you navigating that? 15 years, made gains, but now there's a whole rollback on some of these issues. And are you observing the same?
Yes, I can say that we're observing the same, of course, because of the different dimensions that are happening currently. Right, as you said, the reduced number of allies, for example, in fighting and speaking against some of these vices that are happening across, not only in Kenya, but across within the globe. So as UN Women, what are we doing then? That's why we are taking a multi-sectoral path, talking not only at national level, for example, in Kenya, but also identifying some of those hot spots. First of all, if we are using the numbers, what does the Kenya National Demographic Survey tell us? So some of those hot spots, if, for example, in Kenya, Homa Bay is one of those counties that have very high levels of teenage pregnancy, and based on those factors that are around the county. And then as UN Women, based on those evidence and the data that speaks to us, then we start to identify, isolate, and engage with the county government. So that way, we have been in a position to come up with what we call the triple threat program, joint program, that brings together other UN agencies and then the different development partners to say, this is a red flag. Based on the data that is coming up, this is a red flag, and therefore we need to put into place a program that will address some of these issues. FGM, we have a committee within the Ministry of Gender that was actually set up to address the FGM aspects. You know, like in Kenya, what happens is that most of the FGM cases are around the border with Uganda. Okay, I worked in Uganda previously, and I did champion in the engagement with the local government in Uganda to put up the bylaws, that's how they are called, to say any person that is found should be reported. Right. So those early warning systems within at a local level. Now what happens is that the cutters, because of the pressure, they are pushed across the border. So then what does that mean now that I'm this side? Is now to engage again with the respective county government to say, let's put pressure on this. The moment there is pressure across borders, then definitely this vice will end at the end of the day. But it's a journey that we need to walk together. Yeah. It cannot be only the work of UN Women, but it is a multi-sectoral pathway in addressing some of these vices.
You know, granted, the conversation around FGM has been amplified in Kenya, you know, to a level where in the Kibaki administration, there was even the establishment of a team led by Lina Jebi Kelimo to champion the fight against FGM. And it was taken over by the Uhuru administration as well. Commitments were made. What did Uhuru commit? That we are going to eradicate FGM by 2020?
Wasn't it 2026?
It was last year.
Last year, I think.
It was last year.
24.
Yes.
26.
Yeah.
Okay.
So how does UN Women use its position globally, its muscle, to push for implementation beyond rhetoric? Because like you said, the green flag that you see, we have got very good policies. We've got very good legislative framework. But the implementation is where the rubber does not even meet the road. The rubber and the road don't know each other at all.
They are parallel.
Yes. What influence does UN Women have? And have you applied any sort of pressure to move that needle?
There are different platforms that we use. One of them is the platform that brings together all development partners that work on gender equality and empowerment within the country, but also at the global level. I can tell you that in one of the General Assembly, there have been a pool of women that have come up within the assembly to say, please, this is an issue that you need to address. So for me, I think it's a result of such kinds of traces of pressure that perhaps in Kenya, the government can come up and say, no, we need maybe to set up a technical working group that should be looking at, for example, femicide.
Done.
Yep.
This is just one of those others. A report will come, a report will go to the shelves, a report will sit on the shelves.
Yeah.
Well, I don't want to guarantee that.
So let's work with this particular one. So if you say that UN Women can take some bit of credit in the conversations that you've had in government at various levels that has seen the establishment of this technical team, right? What pressure are you applying? Are you prepared to apply to make sure that this report does not follow the fate of the others?
One of the pressure is to bring together the civil society organizations, because that's the moment the voice from the civil society comes out. That's one of the areas. I know there is an aspect of the shrinking space, okay? But despite the shrinking space, the voices will come out in terms of what are we doing with this report. And I can tell you that once this report is out, you will invite me here. It will be implemented on some of the recommendations that are coming out. Okay, that's one way. The other way is also to engage and have this constructive conversation with the different allies also within, for example, the legislative. Okay, we have KEOPA. This is an issue that relates and concerns women and girls. So then we bring on board KEOPA to say, this is the Association for Women Parliamentarian in the Parliament of Kenya. Then if they are together, then the community will say, you're not you an MP, you are representing us. You didn't voice our issue. Do we need you back or not? So those are some of the hard conversations. And also having, of course, with the private sector, and particularly the media, because the media need to come out. We cannot sit where I sit, and say, okay, we're engaging, we are having all these conversations, and they are not known to the public.
That's true.
So who comes out and says, okay, by the way, Janet, you are an MP representing such and such a county. Have you spoken to these issues? If you have not spoken, then the wananchi will decide.
Jano Women Rep 2027.
Yes.
Quick one. She spoke of
From your lips.
yes, you know. She'd spoken on funding as well earlier, but I wanted to touch on a different aspect of funding, which is funding. Programs follow funding, right? And sometimes policy will follow funding. So what are some of the things that should have been or you may have wanted to be priorities, but there was just not adequate funding for them? Things that were sensitive to the women of Kenya, but yes, pesa tuwaikwa, or maybe the funding was following something sexier or more in trend at the time.
I think one of the things that really should be a very key priority, Kenya being a low middle income country,
Yes.
economic empowerment is very fundamental. We may say whatever we say, but as long as the economic muscle of that woman is not strengthened, then there will be gaps. Okay? So for me, if you asked me today, where I sit and stand, if funding is available to ensure that every woman in this country on a daily basis can get $5 a day, that will address some of the critical issues that we are seeing now. Girls will go to school. They will be in a position to access adequate health care services. And then other issues will come by.
Right.
Because the moment you stand out and you have that, you are economically viable, then you can be a voice in the community.
That's true.
You may have good ideas, but as long as they say, wait a minute, who are you talking to us? Then there will be gaps.
But then I always feel, this is my sometimes perception of some of the programs that, you know, will be run. It'll be a program that will give, for example, Janu is a bead worker. Yes, and they'll be like, okay, the bead workers of Kiambu, we've got this program for them. And then it'll be like, Mariam is good at, she's a great cook. And it's like, okay, her and her chama of chefs will give them this program, and then we'll empower them. But I feel like you're in a position to influence policy that could have every woman in Kenya have that $5 a day. And then there would be no need for the bead workers program and the cooking program. The cooking program.
Tokenism.
Tokenism. That's the word I'm looking for, actually. That's it. Yes.
Influencing policy, as I said, is very good. And you can influence. We have influence. There are policies there. But for me, what I'm looking at is you asked a question around programs and funding, not funding with policies. Because you will fund the policies, and the policies will be launched, will invite NTV and the rest, and then you will do your newscast here. And the policy will sit somewhere there. But what I'm looking at is how do we translate that policy to benefit this woman? And what can we look at as the entry point? So the entry point from my analysis is to look at building the economic livelihood of this single woman. My mother in the rural community may not actually be aware of the economic policies that are governing the country. But what she's aware of, what she needs rather, is to say, can I get the $5 a day? Am I having a balanced diet? Are my children going to school? Is my girl going to school? Is she accessing the good health at the end of the day? But
Dan, I know you see the fix in fixing from a top perspective, such that it's a trickle-down effect, and I'm not using trickle-down economics, promise. But yes, as opposed to one grandmother here, one bead worker there, one chef there. Yes.
No, of course, I'm just giving that kind of example. But it's not like we are going to identify you one in Kiambu, another one in Nairobi, another one. But use a community-based approach. Bring them together, okay? Let them produce. Because we have seen, as I said, we have this program in the 3 counties as a model, and we have seen it work. Each of the rural woman farmers doing their own work, and they are not gaining from their own land that they have access to. And then we bring them together, they form a cooperative, and they have started to aggregate. Some of their products are coming to Nairobi. So that model alone demonstrates that actually, if that can be scaled up, then it can cause changes. And we have seen some of them coming up to say, now, I'm in a better position to stand as an MCA in the coming elections. And that's what we need to look at.
I see where she's coming from, though, because I think policy means you can scale it. Right? It becomes scalable. I always go back to generation equality. I sing that song whenever there's somebody in the studio because I'm like, there was a moment. There was a moment there. And actually, it was there when Kenyatta said to end FGM by 2026. So I think the date, it's 2024.
To repeat a deadline.
For the generation equality, it was child marriage and FGM. So again, in fact, this is also a good point because it's like, okay, when is the deadline? Because I think people also get carried away by momentum. I'm bringing that in because I know that it's also tying into Beijing at 30. There's a link there. I don't know whether this is also an opportunity now to say, okay, we're taking this at scale to look at policy, because there's a moment there. It shouldn't just be, it's been 30 years. I think my biggest heartbreak is it's just been seen as it's been 30 years. Any plans on how you're marking it? Number one. Number two, speaking to how do you push to integrate all of this into policy? I know it might be tricky because you're like, domestically, there's only so much we can do, but policy gives things scale. In as much as there's all these different programs happening, the policy means, this is for every girl and woman, as opposed to the sporadic one. So how are we marking Beijing at 30 so that it's not just a day? Number one. Number two, how can we also use it as a policy moment, if there's any plans for something like that?
Thank you so much for that question. one of the things that we have prioritized is to bring the duty bearers to account. Okay, these are the commitments that we have made. The assessment, the report is already there. The Universal Periodical Review report is already there, and the government has already presented at the global level, and now they'll be coming back to Kenya to say, this is what we have done. So we are going to be calling upon all, both the duty bearers and the rights holders and other stakeholders to come into one space. And they should be in a position to question some of these lapses that are existing, you see. So that's one of the ways into which we are going to mark. The other priority is to say, can we think more innovatively? Did we set ourselves too ambitious? Because there are realities that you need to face with. So if we set ourselves very high, then it is the right time to sit together and say, look, instead of saying FGM by 2024, perhaps we need to revisit our strategies. Yeah. We need to revisit the way we are addressing some of these issues.
Right.
You know, like any other society, including government. And I mean, the government sits together and say, you know, we need to address some of these issues. Maybe they are not working. Maybe we set ourselves very high. It's only that it's human nature. And it's a weakness that sometimes we sit and then say, things will work. But in reality, you sit down in your room and say, this thing is not working.
We can revise this.
We can revise this. So it is always good to come together as stakeholders, and that's what UN Women is all about. To say, convene the stakeholders together and say, is it working? Is it working for us, or it's working against us? And so if it is working for us, then how do we move it higher? If it is working against us, then how do we identify allies so that we bring those allies together? Right. By the time we confront an issue, it's no longer against us, but it's all about us.
Okay. I'm thinking of the goodwill from different factors, different factions, especially now political goodwill. In Kenya, honest review. Is there political goodwill for these issues? That's one. And in the event that it's not there, or it's there partly, then how do you still continue to do the work and impact the change, even when it feels like it's there, not there? If that's the case.
I think the goodwill is there. Okay? The goodwill is there. But the goodwill also need to be examined in terms of the commitment that are deeper. I can give an example. The government set up a Women Rights Advisory Office, which is there to speak to the president, you know, on some of these issues. And we have seen engagement at that level with Honorable Chegai and her team in terms of supporting on some of these issues. We have the CS, for example, for gender, you know. So these are some of the trends that we are seeing.
Right.
The fact that also the president comes up and sets up a committee on femicide, then it means it is an issue that is seeing. So those are the gains that we are seeing, the goodwill that we are seeing. The next level is now to ask, so what? Which is very critical, you know, and that is a continuous. I can't promise that, you know, today I will walk up and say it is now fixed.
Yeah. We have an answer. Okay, it's because sometimes it feels a bit tokenistic.
Yeah.
Whether it's the gender, the working group on femicide, a lot of these things that you've mentioned, they do feel tokenistic. So it's like, okay, is there goodwill or is there the appearance of goodwill? Because I can do the thing and just give you like Sindio Ishika.
Was it saying, or is it trapping for money? Like, you know, you make some statements so that then you can attract in this, you know, support that comes in and goes into. So you have money that is running different programs in the country, and that's good for your economy. But really, whether you have committed to ending it or not is one thing. For example, on UNFPA website, 4th of June 2019, His Excellency President Uhuru Kenyatta made a firm commitment to put an end to FGM by the year 2022.
We're 3 years.
3 years.
You should see.
The president reaffirmed his commitment to end FGM on the 8th of November 2019. The same year, he made that commitment twice, 2022.
According to Generation Equality Forum website, with Kenya as the leader to the Action Coalition on Gender, His Excellency President Kenyatta made 12 concrete commitments. The commitments aimed at increasing momentum of ending all forms of gender-based violence and FGM in Kenya by 2026. Hey, Kenyatta.
All forms of gender-based violence. All.
And FGM in
We
Kenya
have 6 months,
by
guys.
2026. It was
get
a 5-year
serious.
roadmap, 2021 to 26.
We
I
have
don't know, you
6
can
months.
respond to this, Dan. But on one hand, I see a positive thing that a president actually brings that such an issue to the national level and says, I'm making the commitment. And so it's upon others to join in. On the other, I ask like Mariam, is it just making statements so that you sound good, so that you, and among the community of nations? I mean, the president of Kenya is really, really committed to ending FGM in this country.
Well,
He
that-
spoke, he committed.
that if I don't want to be a spokesperson for the former president, to make a comment on what he committed to. But I mean, that commitment is written. Kenya is a nation that believes in public participation and engagement. So it comes back to the wananchi to say, okay, this is what you committed. What have you done? You know, so it's very important. If any leader comes up with these commitments, then if a country that has a provision of public participation, then the public should come up and say, this is what you committed, what have you done? Then from there, the power is with the citizen, it's not with UN Women. Okay?
But does UN Women like follow and go and say, Mr. President, we saw you made this commitment. Is there a roadmap? How are we getting there? Can we suggest ABC?
We do. We do. And I can say that from the Generation Equality, he committed, and there was an increase, a move in terms of the budget allocation.
Yes.
That was given in ending GBV. So for us, that is a plus. There is a commitment, and then there is allocation.
Yeah.
Okay? So it may not be like a commitment of maybe a budget allocation of 50%, but as long as there is an increase in terms of the budget allocation, then for me, that's already a plus. So we can use some of those baby steps, as I may call them, and then see how the baby can crawl and then starts to stand and walk.
Okay.
Every step forward is a step in the right direction. Thank you very much. Dan Bazira, Deputy Country Representative for UN Women in Kenya, has been our guest. In the next, we'll do a Lest We Forget on these commitments on FGM and GBV. Lest we forget, we have up to next year to end all forms of GBV and FGM in Kenya. But lest we forget, we are now in 2025 and 2030 is coming, and we have a Vision 2030, which is supposed to transform Kenya into a middle-income industrializing country.
Right.
Are we that? That's what we'll be discussing next. Keep it here for that. It's 9 a.m.